Finish off the wounded, then yourself. This is the new manual for Russian army soldiers. Servicemen of the Ukrainian Air Assault Forces showed how it works. They demonstrated footage filmed by a drone. Russian soldiers understand that there will be no evacuation, so they resort to the last desperate measure. While the armed forces of Ukraine fight for every life and pull their own out of hot spots, the enemy simply wipes themselves out. Platoon after platoon, say the Ukrainian paratroopers. News from the front cannot help but have a demoralizing effect on Russians. But in Moscow, they have come up with a way to combat the spread of such information. Not that they came up with it themselves, of course. They borrowed it from Iran and North Korea's allies. They decided to simply cut off the internet for Russian citizens. Will this help the Kremlin? Let's figure it out now. The Russian army is doing everything it can to launch its spring-summer offensive. On March 19th, the invaders decided to take Ukrainian positions in the Lyman direction of the Donetsk region. More than 500 infantrymen, dozens of armored vehicles, and over 100 motor vehicles took part in the mechanized assault. As a result, the enemy's losses amounted to 405 men, with 288 irrecoverable, 84 motor vehicles destroyed, 11 IFVs and APCs, and 3 tanks. A Sonsepyok flamethrower system was hit. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War emphasize that any attempt at an offensive in the Donetsk region will inevitably bring Russia massive losses.
Russian troops on the Sloviansk front, who are exhausted, poorly prepared, and overloaded with tasks, will most likely further limit their advance in this area. Russian forces have reduced the basic training for personnel participating in ground offensives from 1 month to 1 week, likely in order to speed up the deployment of recruits to the front lines to make up for the heavy losses suffered during bloody assaults. From the report of the Institute for the Study of War.
For the 3rd month in a row, the Russian army has been losing more soldiers in the war against Ukraine than it is able to recruit, said Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrsky. Between 30 and 35,000 soldiers per month are killed or wounded.
This specific trend first began back in December of last year, and it continues to persist even to this very day. Furthermore, despite the well-documented fact that our own main intelligence directorate and various allied intelligence agencies are reporting that throughout this year, the Russian military political leadership has developed plans to bring a total of 409,000 personnel into their armed forces. This essentially means that they will need to supply approximately 35,000 new servicemen every single month. It's the 3rd month now, and they are not meeting this target.
Ukraine is striving to inflict maximum losses on the enemy. On March 21st, units of Ukraine's Defense Forces detected and successfully struck a Buk-M1 surface-to-air missile system in the area of Pervoy Maya, Bryansk region. They then destroyed a Buk-M2 in the area of Staropetrovka, in the temporarily Russian-occupied territory of Zaporizhzhia region. They also struck a logistics hub in the temporarily occupied territory of Donetsk region. And all of this happened in a single day. The long-range sanctions of Ukraine's defense forces are proving just as effective. Kremlin officials admit there are virtually no safe places left in Russia. It's no surprise that now Russian air defense is frantically firing at everything it sees in the sky. Recently, according to Moscow Mayor Sobyanin, Ukrainian drones were flying toward the Russian capital, and air defense tried to shoot them down. They aimed at the drones but hit an ordinary civilian light aircraft instead.
The Air Defense Forces mistook the aircraft for a Ukrainian UAV and opened fire on the wrong target. After being hit, the light aircraft lost control and crashed near the Oka River. According to Russian telegram channels, the 2 people on board were killed.
The Kremlin does not intend to tolerate such chaos, so they simply ordered the internet to be shut off for Russians. The Russian government explained these measures as being motivated by security concerns and the need to ensure national unity, just like in North Korea, where teenagers are executed for watching South Korean dramas, or in Iran, where the internet is shut down during brutal crackdowns on protests. According to Reuters, Russian officials have been instructed to find a way to block large segments of the internet, both mobile and wired, while simultaneously using and controlling online communications. Russians on social media are already calling their country a digital gulag. In the State Duma, there are calls to bring phone booths back to city streets, and on a propaganda TV channel, children sing songs about the dangers of the internet.
Last week, in some areas of central Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other major cities, mobile internet was completely shut off every day. The tightening of measures to restrict internet access in Russia this year has been accompanied by the adoption of new laws that require mobile operators to disconnect any subscriber at the request of the Federal Security Service and grant the agency the authority to create a network of detention centers under its jurisdiction. From a Reuters agency publication.
As reported by the Financial Times, in March 2026, 67 federal subjects complained about the shutdown of mobile internet, and in 72 regions, whitelists of trusted websites were introduced. Analysts explain that all these are preventive measures by the regime in case of possible protests. The Kremlin is simply testing the Iranian scenario.
If the war ends, then of course all these Z patriots will start criticizing and blaming Putin. And this, in fact, is the part of society that, unlike the liberals, will not be coming out to protest with white ribbons. That's right. This is a serious threat to Putin. That's why the internet needs to be tightened up to such an extent that no protests can arise in case agreements are suddenly signed. But even if they aren't signed, it's absolutely clear that another part of society will be dissatisfied and will criticize Putin for waging a pointless war. And here as well, it's preferable to tighten the screws because Putin's approval rating is falling.
And this systematic tightening of the screws turned out to be more timely than ever. For the first time in many years, farmers in Russia have taken to the streets in protest. In several regions of the Federation, authorities are sending thousands of cows and bulls to slaughter, explaining it as a response to an outbreak of disease. But the farmers say they haven't seen any test results and the animals that were taken away appeared healthy. The official position is the fight against pasteurellosis. But experts suggest that the real reason might be an outbreak of another disease, which, unlike pasteurellosis, cannot be treated. However, in that case, the authorities are required to notify the World Organization for Animal Health. And if they do that, the export of meat and dairy products will be severely restricted. The confiscation of livestock from farmers is carried out by law enforcement, and during their raids, for example in the Novosibirsk region, they jam communications.
This once again shows how Putin and his clique treat their own people, whom they absolutely do not care about. He is ready to kill them in any numbers and is willing to destroy what provides them with their means of subsistence. And all of this lowers his approval rating. And here, yes, now you really should be afraid not of protests. No, because if you push people to the limit, it's no longer rallies or demonstrations, but rather whatever people have at home. Some have a machine gun buried, others only have pitchforks.
But there are other versions, even darker ones for the Russian dictator. Ruben Johnson, director of research at the Kazimir Pulaski Foundation, believes that the shutdown of the internet in Russia and censorship on social networks may not have been ordered by Putin, but rather the result of his failures. The lack of transparency always leads to an avalanche of rumors and conspiracy theories. And nothing fuels speculation as quickly as rumors of a possible palace coup, says the analyst. However, any of these scenarios is a direct consequence of the Kremlin dictator's decision to start a bloody war against Ukraine. Are Russians ready for the consequences of this decision? That question remains open.